All right, welcome back to another edition of Queer Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Diane Conklin, and as always, we're going to get into some stuff today. And we will stay within our three pillars, I'm sure, where we talk about inclusion, community, and growth. Just as a quick reminder, you can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. We have the YouTube channel, also on Facebook at Queer Profits Podcast, and we have the business group, Queer Profits. If you want to jump in there, we're always talking about business things as related to our community. And I am so excited about talking to my guest today. Gena and I have known each other, gosh, I don't even know, I guess 10 years or so from a business environment. And I have had the honor of watching her and her now wife go through a lot of different changes in their business and in their life with kids and a marriage and all sorts of stuff. So, and into what she's doing now. So without stealing your thunder, Gena Shingle Jaffe. Let me make sure I get all of them in there. Welcome. I am so honored to have some time with you today. Tell folks what you do and a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I can't believe it's been a really long time since I was down in Georgia seeing you. So I'm Gena. I am a lawyer. My background is that I'm a lawyer. So I have my own law practice now. I've been practicing on my own for about 7 years. I have a wife. We have 2 children. So we went through reciprocal IVF. So her egg I carried. And, from that journey, which we shared on social media, I got a lot of questions about fertility, and then we had to go through an adoption process, which, we can get into. Because people don't know about this and, that there's legalities involved when you are same-sex couple having a child, I created an organization called Connecting Rainbows, where I connect the LGBTQI plus individuals and couples with lawyers who specialize in working with our community doing family formation, as well as providing fertility resources so that people can really, feel like they understand what's about to happen or what they're about to go through. And we have a directory that's being currently built out of LGBTQ plus friendly fertility clinics. So it's a mouthful.
I so love so much about this, and then having watched you sort of make this transition from, the things that you were doing before to now and all of that. So let me ask you this question, because I think this is something that people may not understand or fully have a grasp of. So even though that there's marriage equity, right? Marriage equality, whatever the right term is for it. We can marry, we can have kids, and we can do all of those things. There's still legally, that does not necessarily protect us and make us both joint parents.
No. So we are both on the birth certificate, and you, in most states, I don't know about all of them, you can go directly on the birth certificate. So when our kids were born, both me and my wife went on the birth certificate. But what people don't know or really understand is that a birth certificate is not a legal document. It is an administrative document that's governed by the laws of the state in which your child is born. So if you leave that state, another state doesn't necessarily have to recognize it. And they can say, well, which one of you is the real parent? The legal parent. So in order to make sure that we had full legal parental rights to both of our children, God forbid something were to happen, we went through what is called the second parent adoption process. And it's called different things in different states, but that's kind of a frequently used term, second parent adoption, where my wife, the biological mom, had to adopt her biological children because as the gestational mom, I was considered the legal parent. So very backwards and very, it's insulting and offensive, but we wanted to be sure, when I was very pregnant with our first, Trump was elected. So we were like, we're doing this, like, we're going all in. We don't know what's going to happen. We spend a lot of money making our babies, and now we've got to spend, a couple thousand more protecting our family. But for us, it was worth it.
Yeah. Well, I think for anybody, right? I mean, totally. There's so many options now for us. Times are so different. I'm obviously, I know probably, I don't know how old you are, but I know I'm probably 20 years older than you. And it's so different, now as compared to, when I was in my 20s and just coming out, the whole, having kids was, you had to have a husband, or you had to, do something, right?
Right.
with a man. And so it's so interesting to me just how far we've come with that process, and yet how far we have to go from a legal perspective to really do this in a way that our straight counterparts, don't really have to think about.
Right. Right. That's part of what I want to do. I want to educate as well, and create some sort of advocacy for just the awareness, because awareness is what brings forth change.
Yeah.
And even a lot of lawyers don't know this. If you don't specifically work in the family formation area of law, which is a very niche area, and then in that with the LGBTQIA plus community, then people don't know what they're talking about a lot of times.
Right.
So, and again, this is not required. You don't have to go through this, but it's safer. If you're going to travel internationally, like you need adoption to prove that these are your, like, God forbid you had to go to the hospital.
Right.
Inheritance rights. If you get divorced, there have been cases of custody battles because of it. So, it's again not required, but something that is good to look into. And my organization is just providing you with the attorneys that can help in your state. And that you're going to be taken care of by coming to there and looking at that directory.
Well, this sort of came up for you because of everything you've been through. This wasn't your niche area in law before this, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I did business law. And so I don't practice this area. So I don't do these adoptions or anything like that. My whole job in this organization is to connect our community to attorneys who specialize in this. But yeah, when I got pregnant, I didn't even know we had to go through this. I mean, why would I? I was like, oh, cool. We can both go on the birth certificate now. Like, we're good. But no.
So how did you find out that no, we're not good?
We had local lesbian friends who went through the process. So their children were a little bit older, and they had mentioned to us that they did something like this, and I was like, wait, what? And it's very state specific. It's state specific as to what you have to go through. Some states require a home study where they come in, social worker comes in, does a whole home study to make sure you are fit to be a parent. Fortunately, where we live, we did not have to go through that, but my wife did have to get fingerprinted, go through a criminal background check, child abuse clearance, all to adopt her own biological children.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And
yeah.
my brain, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, it's crazy because, like, if something were to go wrong and, like, God forbid, like, we had to go to the hospital, my son is the spitting image of my wife. They would be like, who are you? To me, they would be like,
right,
why are you here? But yeah.
Wow. It's just amazing. I mean, where my brain went was what would happen? I mean, God forbid. And obviously with you two, this would never have happened, but what if you got the person who came in to do this home study? And again, I'm totally doing a what if here, but was homophobic. And they came in and decided that for whatever reason, they're not going to approve this, and that you're not, your partner, your wife, your husband, whatever, isn't fit to be a parent. What do you do? I mean, is there recourse? I mean, they're biologically yours. They share the same DNA.
Yeah. So with, like, laws and stuff that are passed now, you can't discriminate based on that, but I guess they could lie. I mean, I know that I was in this work now. I've been talking to different people who've had to go through home studies, and for a short period of time in Texas, because it's Texas, I don't know if it was the governor or someone said to social workers, you can discriminate based on sexual orientation if it goes against your own religious beliefs. So that was, I think that she told me that was allowed for like a few weeks before, like, the higher ups got involved and were like, no, you can't do that. But for a short period of time, they could. But I know that a lot of the social workers she had shared with me were like, this isn't right. Like, wait a second, this is not right. And that's why it's really important to find an attorney that specializes in this, that can help you, because then they can help you find a good social worker, or at least a good organization to, send out a social worker. It's going to depend on the county.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly where you live.
The person's beliefs, the person's attitudes, the person's I mean, because, look, the bottom line is we can make anything in the world legal or illegal. But what it really comes down to is the person who's enforcing that law, right? I mean, it really comes down to what's in your heart, because, we can legalize all sorts of things, but it doesn't change what's inside of people, right? I mean,
right.
That's
that county clerk who refused to issue marriage, right? Like, there was recourse there, but
But how long did it take? Yeah, how long did it take, right?
Right. And in the moment, it's
Speaking of which, let's talk about, and we'll come back to what you're doing with all of this, because I'm just mesmerized by all of it. But let's talk about one of the things that's sort of up in the air right now, and of course we think is okay, but we also know that it's in the background, right? Is what are the chances that the marriage equality gets reversed? There's been some talk about that. You as an attorney, I'm sure, have a more than just an opinion. There's some legal basis behind it. I'm not asking for legal advice. I'm just asking you what you think is going to happen, if you think that's a possibility.
So it's a possibility, but I don't believe it's a high probability. I don't. So when it comes to going in front of the Supreme Court and having something reversed, it takes a lot of time, and it takes the right case. Cases are going in front of the Supreme Court all the time, and they only have, a certain amount that they can take per year. They revert a lot back to the lower courts. So it takes the right case that has to go through the state level, then it goes to the circuit level, then it goes up to the Supreme Court. And the facts just have to be right. I don't know. I think we're okay, but what we are seeing are things that are kind of slowly being chipped away at potentially. So there's a case in front of the Supreme Court right now, Fulton versus the city of Philadelphia, which I live outside Philadelphia, where a religious organization, an adoption organization, said we are not going to place children with LGBTQ plus families. So we are not going to put children with anyone, that identifies that way. And the city of Philadelphia said, you can't do that. Like, that's discriminatory. We will cut your funding. And so it's in front of the Supreme Court now that's saying, if you are a government funded organization, can we discriminate based on religious beliefs? So the lower court said no, circuit court said no, and now it's in front of the Supreme Court. And I'm a little nervous about it because of the makeup of the court. There's supposed to be a separation of church and state. We all know that there's really not always. And what people don't understand, or I think always remember from when we learned about con law and, all that, is there is a separation between the judicial branch of the Supreme Court and the executive branch, which is the president. So Biden I love him, and he's doing so much for our community to try, to make sure that there's as much equality as possible, but he can't change what the Supreme Court says or does. So Congress makes the laws, the Supreme Court interprets the laws, and then Biden kind of enforces, the president kind of enforces it. So Biden can't change the laws unilaterally. Like, he can't. So the Supreme Court can say, hey, yep, if you receive government funding, you claim to be a religious organization, you don't have to work with the gays. Biden can't do anything about that, like, to change it. We would then need to wait for another case to come up. I don't know what the likelihood of that is. I don't know like all the intricacies well enough of that specific case. But yeah, it's scary. It's definitely scary. I mean, there's like 100 anti-trans bills right now in front of Congress. Like, there's a lot of hate. There's a lot of hate out there. And I think that it's just about educating people on what's happening. And, we can say I live in a liberal area, thank goodness. And so it's, sometimes I am in my own little bubble, but.
And, I think that's an interesting point that you make, because I've said that several times. When we live in liberal areas or we live in big cities, I'm in Metro Atlanta, you're outside of Philly, you guys lived in New York for a while. I grew up on a 75-acre farm in rural Ohio. And so
Ooh.
I have, right, this dichotomy of both things. And it's interesting because while I do sometimes forget that I'm in a bubble, I often revert back to what would I feel like, or what would this be like if I still lived there, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's 2021 and things are changing and blah, blah, blah. And yet we know what we just went through last summer and with Black Lives Matter and all of these different things. And, having been with, a person of color and dating someone now who is, it just brings up like these different questions and these different perspectives for me, that it's like, yeah, we live in this bubble. And yet what if, what is happening to the person who doesn't live in that liberal area, who lives in that rural area, who's even if they're protected by the law, right? I mean, there's a different mentality and people's hearts. You can't legislate what people feel inside. And that's, I think, the scary part.
Yeah. It's like sometimes because I have kids and, you want to protect them. And I sometimes just kind of have to turn off the what if, because I don't want to go there with having children. And again, thank goodness we're in an area, like I'm in a very liberal area. The town right over here is so gay, like so gay. And we've, it's been very welcoming where we live now. And, there's only been like one instance. But yeah, I cannot imagine what it's like for people who live in areas where it's not, and they feel they can't even come out, or it's literally illegal to come out based on the country that they live in.
Right. Well, and I think the fact that you just said there are 100 anti-trans bills before Congress. I mean, seriously, don't we have other things that are more important than
a lot of things?
Yeah.
I don't know why people care about transgender children playing in sports. Like, I don't, yes, we have a whole lot more to be dealing with. And
because we live in a world of lack, right? And so people look at that and say, well, if that trans child takes that spot, it takes away the chance that my child has of, filling that spot. Instead of
kids not going to the Olympics. It's okay.
Right. Right. 0.0001% of those kids are going somewhere. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, that kid's struggling with enough already. Let them play soccer.
Right. Right. That adult is struggling with enough already, right? Leave them alone.
Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing. So did you guys have, and I'm sure you did, but did you guys have some major challenge other than what you've already talked about that sort of spurred this whole fertility, the legal piece and putting things together?
Well, our fertility journey was not straightforward. For us, we had some bumps in the road, bunch of negative tests. My wife ultimately ended up needing a hysterectomy. So we shared our whole journey, as I had mentioned, on social media, which led to so many people reaching out, asking questions, feeling very validated, just like feeling really grateful that we shared, because again, it can be a very isolating experience that not a lot of people talk about. You wait until your second trimester to announce your pregnancy to make sure everything goes okay. And at least we did that with our son. With our daughter, day one, we were like, here we go. We're going to the appointment. Like we decided to share the whole thing. And I just saw how helpful it was for other people, because it was helpful for us when we were going through it as well, to see these other lesbians going through it and having, unfortunately, but having challenges, but then having success and then having babies, and just being able to watch that was just really helpful. We found such community on social media. Social media can be an ugly place, but it can be a really incredible community. I especially think for the LGBTQIA+ community, just because, especially with COVID, you're isolated, but now you can connect with people over the world. So that was a big piece of sharing the fertility. And then what kind of really brought this whole thing on with the legal part was Amy Coney Barrett. When she was nominated, I put out there, hey, here are some things you might want to think about to protect your family, God forbid something were to happen. And it was, wills, healthcare proxy, power of attorney, adopt your kids. That post was shared thousands of times. And I was like, I guess this is something that people need. So the business was created kind of overnight. Like, it was very quick that I put it together, just because I saw that there was such a need for this. Yeah.
So let's talk about, there's so much that we can unpack here, but this whole thing of like, and I watched this, right? I watched you guys share this on social media. And quite frankly, I was sitting here going, wow, look at, I mean, like, they're like putting it out there, right? Which I love. And so where does the confidence come from being, I mean, that's a big vulnerable thing. I mean, if something had happened, and God forbid, right, it didn't, so we're past it. But if, you know, something had happened and or whatever, I mean, that's a big emotional thing. Where do you get just the confidence at your age to be so vulnerable in such a public forum?
Yeah, I think because I saw how it helped me when other people shared, and people went through very vulnerable times, that I think miscarriage is something that there's a stigma to it. And that is I think one of the most isolating experiences, because in your first trimester, most people aren't sharing anything. They're not sharing that they're pregnant. They're not sharing that maybe that they're even trying. Then you go through this experience where you lose a child and you have no one to fall back on. So the way that I saw it and we saw it was, we have so much support, God forbid something were to go wrong, that there are people out there like ready to catch us and kind of hold space for us. But yeah, it would have been devastating, of course, and really hard. We probably would have taken a little bit of time off of social media just to grieve and process. I mean, we lost embryos, which, you know, it wasn't a full-blown child, but for us, we lost an embryo in the thought process. So we had frozen embryos. When we went to go do the transfer, one of the embryos didn't make it. And then when they transferred one embryo, it didn't take. And so for me, I did feel like a loss, because it was a growing cell that again, I believe in pro-life, but for me, I wanted that baby. I wanted that embryo. So I felt that, but yeah, I think, look, being very public, which I am, definitely comes with hardships, comes with a lot of negativity, but the positivity and the beauty and the help that I'm giving other people is so much more than the 2% of negative that comes with it.
You know, that's interesting, because so many people would focus on, I see this in my clients, right? They get one complaint or one person drops out of a program and they totally are like, Diane, I need to change the program. No, you don't. It was one person. You've got 500 people that are happy. So I think it's a mindset partly. How do you because some of the negative stuff, I'm sure, and we haven't talked about this ahead, so I don't know, but my guess is, based on what I've been through myself, is that some of the negative stuff is negative and it's hard to swallow. So how do you do that? How do you let the 98%, which we would think would be easy, right? How do you let the 98% be the positive and not focus on that 2% of the negative that's so harsh and so personal and so like just stab you in the heart kind of stuff?
I'm lucky that my wife is like the spiritual guru. Like, she's so good. I take everything to her. But I've also formed amazing friendships with people on Instagram who are just as public as me. And, we'll share with them like, oh my gosh, somebody said this or somebody said that. And then because they've experienced the same thing, it's nice to just kind of hear how they've handled it. And also, some of my friends have even shared posts specifically sharing the nasty things people have said, and have been like, people said this and this and this and this, but like, guess what? And like, kissing their wife or something, like, we're not going to let it get us down, because even if we, there's negativity everywhere. And I try to focus on and remember the people who sent me really nice and really kind messages. I know that Jordana, my wife, has like saved screenshots of things that people have said to her. Yep. Yeah. Like, just like, thank you so much for what you're doing. And at this point now, I'd usually just delete and block people. I'm like, delete, block, like, you don't need to be in my space. I don't need you in my space. I think there's a place for education. And I think that those people really need to hear what we have to say, but they're not going to.
Right.
So
yeah.
Yeah, it's like you've landed on the wrong page. It's kind of the right page because you need to hear it,
Right.
but I'm going to remove you from it anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I used to definitely let it get me down a lot more than I do now, but I'm way too busy to focus on that.
So how do you balance, right? I think, and again, I'm not a believer in this balance word, but you've got a lot going on. Now you've got two businesses, right? You've got your law business where you're the business lawyer doing stuff for businesses. Now you've got this fertility thing that you're doing and working on and really growing because it's pretty new. You've got a wife, you've got two kids. You guys have moved a couple of times. I mean, how do you find time? And there's always pictures of you and the kids like on Instagram and on Facebook and all of this stuff. So clearly you have time, you're making time for the family, right? So how are you getting all of this done in the same amount of hours that we all have? I get that, but like, is there like tricks that you use? Is it time management? Is it just, what is it?
I need more time for sure. So my son is in school, so he's in preschool. My wife, so Jordana, is now a stay-at-home mom. So during the day when Parker is in school is my work time. So when I take him to school every morning, we have that time together. 9:30, I sit down at my desk. I go to pick him up. I leave around 2:30. I'm still nursing my daughter, so I do stop during that time to nurse, but for the most part, I'm working those hours. Then it's no more work. We get Parker from school. We have family time. Kids go to bed. I go back to work. I was for a while getting up. So my daughter would wake up around 5 o'clock to nurse. I'd put her back to bed and then I'd stay up and work until Parker got up. But he was then getting up earlier. He sleeps in our bed with us. So he would realize I wasn't there and want to come in. So now I've gone back to bed, but I work on the weekends too. My parents are the most involved grandparents ever. They're the best. So, every weekend they'll come over and help either for a little bit here or they'll take Parker on an adventure somewhere. So yeah, I've been working a lot more in 2021 than I was before, just because I did just start this business in the new year and getting it off the ground. But I think that because it's something that I'm so passionate about, like this business is me. It's gay, it's legal, it's fertility, like it blends all of me, that it's just like I could work all day and be so satisfied, like so satisfied. But I have my children and I want to spend time with them too, but I think that it's so true what people say, like find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Like I've finally found that.
Right. Finally. So the thing I didn't hear you talk about in there is time for just you and
Jordana. Yes. So we do date night. So we do date night every Friday night, date night in, okay, we're not going anywhere these days.
Right.
And then, I mean, it's a lot of tag team now that we have two kids.
Sure.
Like in the mornings, it's, I'm making Parker's lunch while Jordana's getting Josie breakfast while we're doing this and this and this. And so it has to be very intentional. I have been working less at night. So we alternate putting Parker to bed. So if she's putting Parker to bed, I'm trying to get some work done so that when you might be able to hear her screaming, so that when she's done putting him to bed, then we can have some time together. Right. But we used to do, so when COVID hit, we did trunk dates. So my parents would come watch the kids and we would go get takeout somewhere and sit in our trunk at a park. And like, we called it trunk dates.
Right.
So we tried to do that once a week and then, life happens. But yes, on Friday night, we do takeout and a movie on the couch and just like have intentional time. But, it's,
I love that. I love the piece of what you just said, right? Is intentional. And I think that's the thing that sometimes happens because you guys have been together
we've been together for almost 8 years. We'll be married 7 years in August.
I was going to say 7 and I just didn't want to even go there because I knew I would be wrong, but So it's a while, right? So I think sometimes what happens when we have a longer term relationship, and, I can speak to this having, had a 20-year, is we're not intentional anymore. We get into the day-to-day pieces of, life is what it is, and we just go about and we do our things. And so I think the fact that the word that you use it poked my ears, right? Is that you do it intentionally.
You have to. You have to. Otherwise it's true. By the end of the day, we're tired. We're exhausted, especially, when Parker wasn't in school and, when COVID hit and all of that, and we had a newborn, we're tired. So it's like, okay, we're going to go to bed later tonight so that we can actually remember who we are and remember that we're married and
that we love each other.
And that right, exactly. But phones down, there's no phones, there's no computers. It's just, us either sitting together at the table having dinner, which never happens, or if it's late because maybe the kids went to bed late, it's on the couch having dinner while we're watching a movie. But so we're even not necessarily talking, but I since I'm still breastfeeding, every night before I go to bed I have to pump, so we use that time to talk also. So we'll be on the couch and we're like, okay, phones down, let's pump. And how was your day? 15 minutes, but still it's, there was a point in time during quarantine where Jordana would on her phone set a timer for 10 minutes and each of us would have 10 minutes to talk. Uninterrupted, no kids, no phones, nothing else besides the timer. But yes, it really, really does have to be quite intentional.
It's interesting that you said that about sitting at the table, because when I'm here by myself, I never sit at the table. I pull out a tray and I sit in front of the TV and I eat, right? But there's something special about sitting at the table with the person you're seeing, your partner, your spouse, your wife, husband, whatever, and actually having a meal. And again, I think without the phones, because I don't do that anyway, I never have, but sitting there enjoying the food, it could be a hamburger, could be French fries, doesn't matter what it is, and enjoying each other at the same time. Of that, there's a different level of connection, I think, that happens when you make the time to do that.
Yeah Things kind of slow down a little.
And I know, and the gal and I'm dating right now, it's not across the table. We sit adjacent. And so it's that piece of we're closer. And if I'm looking that way, then there's a reason. When you sit across, you're automatically looking, right? But when you sit adjacent, it's that piece of, I'm looking at you. I'm engaged with you even more so, I think. And we don't do it necessarily in a restaurant, but all the time. But it's that piece of, there's a real connection, at least for me, at that dinner table when you're having that sort of communion, if you will.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
So let's go back to the infertility stuff, because I knew we were going to have all sorts of conversations, and I was looking forward to the variety of things that we were going to talk about. Very different, by the way, than the 25 interviews that I've done, which was part of the reason I was so excited to talk to you. But so, and I'll give you, obviously, I want you to give people your contact information and tell them how to get in touch with you, both from the fertility and the business stuff, if you want to do that. But let's talk about, what would you suggest if somebody's listening to this and they're just getting started in this process? The top 2 or 3 things, tips or strategies or just things that will make that process easier for them.
Yeah. Well, I think if you haven't yet found a fertility clinic, then, the relationship that you have with your doctor, finding a doctor that you really connect with, is so crucial, because it's a long process. You're there multiple times a week at points, going through a whole lot. I mean, we each ended up needing to have surgery. We had a bunch of bumps in the road. So, they would have to call us with not so great news. And then negative pregnancy tests, they're calling you with all this. So finding someone that you really connect with, that you feel is very compassionate and kind and understanding, so important. So I always say, go interview your doctor the first person you go to is not the person that you need to go to. The second thing I would say is make a plan, but be very flexible. Our plan went nothing like we imagined at all. And it turned out beautifully. Like I can't imagine not like having these babies. I always thought I'd have a biological child. I didn't, but I don't care. I don't care. Like these children could not be any more mine. Right. And just find a community, find other people who either have gone through fertility or are going through it at the same time. It's actually really nice to have somebody who's going through it at the same time with you, just because you can commiserate over whatever it is that is happening. Because it's a lot mentally, emotionally, physically. If you're going through IVF, physically for sure, and financially, it's a lot. So just again, having community, I think, is so important.
You know what? So this is going to sound like a bizarre question, but I just want to address it because I'm sure that you may have even gotten some of this. But let me just ask that question: have you gotten feedback inside of the queer community of, that this is somehow elitist, that well, you have the money to be able to do the IVF, and obviously you have good insurance, and we're not all in that kind of situation or whatever. And if you have, I want to discuss it a little bit and talk about that piece.
Yeah. Personally, I have not been attacked or judged or anything for that, but I've seen it. Fertility is the whitest industry you're going to find. It is very white, and socioeconomically it's going to be obviously a higher class for sure. I have been searching high and low for as many colored doctors as possible to talk to. Like, there's like the smallest number of handful of Black fertility doctors. I'm talking to one today. I'm very excited about it. And I kind of put that out there to my Instagram community, and I was like, it is so hard. Like, I can't find a single Black lawyer that does this specific type of law. And people said to me, well, look at who goes through fertility. And I said, you're absolutely right. So part of my business, so part of Connecting Rainbows, is I have an entire section on grants and loans that you can, so for financial resources that you can find. But yes, I'm very, very lucky and blessed and privileged that we were able to pay for this. Because it was, I already have a blog post on it. We paid $50,000 to have our children. Like, people don't have that lying around. We didn't have that lying around either, but like we were able to do that. It was spread out over time, but yeah, it is. Yeah.
So I love that you were just so open about that. And I that piece of it didn't even cross my mind, but that's interesting. So part of what you've talked about is this connection in this community and all that. And I may be stirring up worms here, but me, I'm going to ask the question. So is part of what you're doing in Connecting Rainbows, is there a community piece to this? Are you going to provide some of that community, or are you simply the connector?
At this point, I'm the connector. I would love to definitely have a community at some point. But right now, as the, solo person here doing all of this, I'm talking to any person that is on this directory, any attorney, any fertility clinic I have spoken to. Me individually have spoken to them to, I can't legally say, but vet them to ensure that this is going to be someone or an organization that is good for our community, that can speak to them, are well versed in handling LGBTQIA individuals, issues, all of that. Because I'm having a whole trans, non-binary resources and stuff like that as well. So to find doctors specifically who can deal with that, because there's a whole trans fertility really cool piece to all of this as well. So for now, I just want to make sure that I'm getting the experts to help us. And then people can connect, throughout the Instagram page if you find people who are going through all that. But yeah.
Very cool. Good. Well, this has been amazing, as I knew it was going to be. And I love the fact that we just talked about all sorts of different things here. So Gena, let people know where they can find you, where they can get more information about this, how they can get involved if there's somebody who has just a question or wants to help you or whatever it might be.
Thanks. Yeah, so connectingrainbows.org is our website where you can find all of these resources. I'm constantly building it out. We have a blog, so people sharing their journeys. Experts are sharing different tips and information. And we also have a YouTube channel, where I'm interviewing people as well. And then on Instagram, it's at connectingrainbows.org. I am going to be doing some IGTVs, and like I'm talking to a doctor today and a lawyer, just to get information out there. Education's empowering. So that's part of kind of what this is. I view my job as, educating our community on what they need. And then my personal Instagram is Gena Jaffe, Gena, where I share more of lifestyle, our family, all of that good stuff.
Perfect. So from a business perspective, and you and I have already talked about this, but just to share, because it is, we do talk about business stuff, and we didn't really do that today, and I don't really care. It's something for the community that we need, right? And so part of, this is the community piece, right? This is the growth piece. But from a business perspective, what are you doing to monetize this, or how do you intend to monetize this as you move forward?
Yeah. So it's all self-funded right now. So the lawyers have to pay to be on the directory. It's a very nominal fee. The fertility clinics also are going to have to pay to be on the directory. Again, also a nominal fee, but I just want to say like, hey, I'm marketing all of this to you guys for, my community. And then ultimately I will be, hopefully getting advertisers and sponsorships, mostly with like larger fertility pharmaceutical companies. I actually had a call today where I'm going to be doing like sponsored Instagram content because it's a fertility company. Stuff like that. It's, there's a lot of potential here especially with pharmaceuticals, to get involved in the fertility industry does have some dollars. So yeah, but ultimately I really do want to have a nonprofit piece to it. I think that, it's important. I want to have like a fertility fund and legal assistance fund. So down the line, I really would like to have a nonprofit piece to kind of help others fund their journeys.
Very cool. I love so much that, as much as I asked the question about, the elitism and all that, one of the things that I've always appreciated about you and Jordana is that piece of you that, one, you're both so giving and so loving, but this piece of, I always feel like there's always this give back, right? You always have this, because you are just so out there and so vulnerable and so everything. I always feel like there's such this piece of just, here it all is. And not that you're not making money and not that you shouldn't make money. I'm a firm believer in that, as you well know, and capitalist at heart, but it's always this piece of just, there it is. And this just heart piece of being vulnerable and putting it out there and sharing with the world and saying, if you can take this and use something from it, use it. And if you can't, then, don't. But I just admire that piece of what you guys have always done. So.
Thank you. Yes, this is a for-profit. It's not a nonprofit. I, thought about setting up as a nonprofit to begin with, and, went the other route. But yeah, no, the community is not, it's not, you're not going to pay to access my directory. It's going to be there for you. I want to have a membership site at some point where you'll get perks and stuff like that for being a member. But, the point isn't to make money from our community. The point is to give back to our community and let the pockets fund it for us.
Right. I love that. Well, I just, again, thank you so much for your time, for sharing, for being just, as always, so open and honest and vulnerable and all of that. I'm honored to have reconnected with you and to have spent some time with you today on, talking about these things, because I think it's just so critical to, not only our community now, but, as we move forward and laws change and things change and just being aware of what's there. And I think what you're doing is going to be a critical piece to that. So thank you very much for doing this and for sharing with me and my community today. I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So, wow, I'm just like, my brain is spinning and I'm way past the point of doing fertility for me, but
like, what can I do?
Especially since they took my pieces parts 20 years ago. But
I was going to say, if you have a uterus, you can still carry, you just can't use your eggs.
Yeah, well, at 57, there would be some concerns with that, but funny. But yeah, interestingly enough, and I think I shared this with you at some point, one of the things that I always wanted to do was have a baby. Like that was like from the time I was a little girl, I can remember like I wanted to have that physical experience. So that is, I don't live my life with regrets, but that is one that I definitely will take with me that didn't get to happen. But
pregnancy is hard. Let's just put it out there. It was I didn't have neither of them were easy for me. I was very sick. So take that. Take that one if you know. But that's actually I'm interviewing a doctor today and then another this weekend on fertility preservation. So that is a big piece of really educating the younger generation of, hey, you might not be thinking about having kids now, but guess what? Your eggs are like really good. And then also fertility preservation prior to transitioning, making sure that you are, preserving, especially sperm. Sperm does not, like once you, go on any gender affirming hormones with sperm actually dies off, whereas your ovaries can make your eggs again. So, for men, they can do egg retrievals after. I think you just have to be off testosterone for a few months and then you can do that. But it's just like an important topic that I don't think a lot of people think about because, you just want to finally be who you are. And so people just, kind of dive right into the gender affirming hormones. And so I just want to kind of talk about the preservation piece of fertility and all that. So that's part of what I'm going to be talking about today.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, no, I'm glad that you brought that up because I wouldn't have thought about that either. So good. Well, again, thank you so much. This is it's been amazing. And I hope that if you're in a spot in your life or if you need to think about this, if you're transitioning or you're young and you don't think you want kids or whatever, that last piece is sort of something that you think about. And again, if you are at the place where you're thinking about this, reach out to Gena, listen to this again, go back through. There was a lot of wisdom and we didn't talk just about the fertility stuff, but there was a lot of wisdom that Gena, as always, anytime I've been around her, there's always some gem that I walk away from. So again, this has been Queer Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Diane Conklin. Just as a quick reminder, if you'd like to have the free report, the 3 keys to growing your business, getting more clients and make more money, check that out. I always get that in a mouthful. Check that out at queerprofits.com. You can find the podcast at Queer Profits Podcast on Facebook, on the website, on YouTube at those names. And don't forget, we do have the business page, Queer Profits, where we talk about all sorts of business growth kinds of things for our community and how you can move that forward. So until next time, again, Gena, thanks so much. Make it a great day and reach out. Let us know if you have comments or things that you questions or anything else that you want us to talk about and interview people on, let us know.
Bye.